Good day to you, Guyana, and welcome to Facing the Nation. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you so very much for joining us for another edition. It is the final Friday in the month of July, of course, in the year of 2017, and it is our pleasure to be here and to complete another month with you. It's amazing how quickly this year is flying by. Some of us are very excited, especially the people who love Christmas. I heard a colleague earlier today talking about Christmas, and I was, what? But, I understand the excitement. It is my pleasure to close off this month's programming with the minister within the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, Annette Fergusson. Now, even though she holds that hat, the first thing we're going to be focusing on today's program has to do with a hat that she's temporarily wearing, because this is a temporary celebration. It's a temporary year. So it's just 1 year of these activities. Those of you who are constant every week supporters and viewers of Facing the Nation would remember back in May, the People's National Congress, of course, this is just to pause the reform component for a bit. The People's National Congress announced that it would be observing and celebrating 60 years of existence this year. And of course, the major celebration, or I should say the climax and the peak of those celebrations, will occur in October, when it's the actual day. But because it's 60 is a very big number for us, we thought it fitting to have events and activities, both fun-filled and educational, throughout the entire year to observe that. Because again, I did say 60 is really a big year. We have achieved a lot as an organization, as a body, as a political body in 60 years. And we know those who have come and gone before us have really left a legacy, and it is our duty to take care of it and to show people and to remind people of how efficient and how effective and significant the People's National Congress is. Of course, later it became the People's National Congress Reform with the reform component. One of the other things that we believe in is partnership and collaborating. And because we believe in partnership and collaborating, that's one of the reasons the reform component was added, all in the name of strengthening the People's National Congress, which was the brainchild, Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham, who was also the founding father. You will also hear about an activity coming up very soon too, to also remember Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham. But enough from me for now. Annette Fergusson, welcome back to Facing the Nation.
Oh, thank you very much, Malika. It is always a pleasure me being here.
All right.
And to you wonderful viewers there in TV land, a blessed and wonderful Friday. And like Malika, thank you for having me in your homes, in your offices, wherever you are at this point in time.
I'm sure they appreciate it. Not a face other than mine, because they only saw mine last week. So
okay.
It really is good to have you. Viewers, we're also going to be talking about public infrastructure in terms of giving you a general overview on what would have occurred in terms of development since last Minister Fergusson was here. But first, I did say the main discussion today is about the PNC's 60th anniversary. And even before we go into some of the other activities, let's talk about the first, this should be the second major activity, because we had the launch of activities already. So let's talk about the second major activity, which is to be held at Congress Place tomorrow.
Yes, thank you very much, Malika. Just to supplement to what you would have just said, indeed, tomorrow, July the 29th, 2017, we'll be pulling off our second major activity since we will be observing 60 years as a political party. Mm-hmm. And what is that event? That event is basically a symposium, right? The 60th symposium. So it will take the form of, should I say lecture? Should I say, educational in a nutshell? At that symposium, we will be having presentations, and the presenters will be His Excellency, who will be focusing on Burnham and the PNC. Mm-hmm. Right. The second presentation will be done by Comrade Yvonne Haywood-Ben, and she will be touching on the National Congress of Women. The third presentation will be done on the chronology of the PNC, and that will be done by one Mrs. Hazel Wolford. And not forgetting the other arm of the party, that's the youth arm, the Ghana Youth and Student Movement. A presentation will be done by the former immediate past leader, Robert Corbyn. And I must say for viewers, the National Congress of Women and the Ghana Youth and Student Movement, I think when the PNC was birthed, these two arms had a different name, and as time evolved, those names would have changed significantly. You had the Women's Auxiliary organized, then you had the WRSM, then I think the youth arm was the Young Socialist Movement. So at that symposium, members, even I think members of the PNC, special invitees will be there to get a sense as to the whole purpose of the People's National Congress. Because like you and I, we're young in this thing, and I guess from at that particular event tomorrow, we would be fed with a wealth of information, and other members too will be fed with a lot of information.
I'm happy that you, in a sense, brought back to the fore that we may not be as what is defined. I think it's by the United Nations. What is defined as young people, we may have been past that bracket, yes. But indeed in the PNCR, where some of the senior members would actually call us babies. So I'm happy that you talked about that. As a young person who grew up in the PNC, I know you always talk about going to various meetings, even as a child, as a teenager, and so on. What does it mean to now not only be a part of these activities and these celebrations to mark 60, but also to be chairing the committee that is in charge of it? And this is without even focusing on the fact that you're chair of the committee. What does it really mean to Annette Fergusson now that the PNC is quickly moving closer to jumping over another milestone?
Well, if I'm to, put it in one word, it really means a lot for me, right? To be given, one, the opportunity to serve as the chairperson to ensure that all the activities planned are well executed. I know it's a big task on my shoulder, and journeying on, I must admit that, I have the strength and the support from, seasonal comrades there in the party. So for me, it's a great pleasure.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about some of the other upcoming activities and so on. And because it's a political party and there's a constitution that we go by and there are rules and so on,
yes.
Everything cannot be open to public participation. Yes. But let's talk about some of the other activities that are coming up. And the public can be, even PNC members who are not necessarily active, how they can be involved and so on.
Well, Malika, we have a calendar of events. And as we reported earlier, 2 events would have, one on the 19th of May, we had the massive launching of these activities. Tomorrow, we'll be having the anniversary symposium, which will take in the form of a lecture. On the 27th of August, we'll be having a brunch and album launch for this Diamond Jubilee. In the month of September, we're looking to pull off an inter-school debating competition.
So we're taking it to the younger folks.
Exactly. So we're yet to decide. The committee is yet to decide on the possible topics. I think this afternoon when we meet, we'll be able to finalize, topics for such debating competition.
I'm assuming Green and Guyana would possibly be one, because our world now, when I say world, meaning where we live in this little part of the world, we're focusing on green. So that's just an idea.
No, you're absolutely correct.
Not that it's an original, but it's an idea.
No, you're absolutely correct, because, just last week when we met, that was one of the topics we were toiling with. Okay. So hopefully we'll have it in a more structured format before we actually put it out there. We're looking to pull off a nice short film And this will have stories of our iconic leaders. Many, as you rightfully said, would have served with great distinction and brought us to where we at. So it's just for us now to run with the legacies they would have left. So we will be showing a flame in that respect. In the month of September too, we want to have a relaunch of our website because yes, the PNC do have a website, but we see the need to have it rebranded and relaunched, right? Make it more modern and that of interactive, right? We will be compiling a magazine. And this magazine should entail, photos of what the PNC would have done as a government while in opposition. We would also be having a few speeches by His Excellency and leader of the PNC, David A. Granger, and other senior party officials, right? So that magazine would compile that, both text and pictorial forms, right? A special congress will be held in the month of October because, mind you, the PNC was aborted on the 5th of October, 1957.
Yes.
So in the month of October, we'll be having a series of events. And
that's when it climaxes then.
Yes, right? So on October 7, 2017, we'll be pulling off a special Congress. And at this special Congress, we will be honoring at least 60 long-standing members of the People's National Congress Reform, right? So those persons will be honored, or awarded. In the month of October, we have, there will be a Family Fun Day and sports. So a special committee has been established to deal with this because we want to make this thing big and we're taking it to Linden.
Right, and that's where the general public, their involvement comes in. So don't feel left out. You'll also be a part of these celebrations.
Good. The gospel mega concert will also be pulled off in the month of October. These dates will be unveiled as times go by because we do have tentative dates to these events. And last but not least, we'll be having a gala dinner which will be hosted by His Excellency, and this will be on the 2nd of December 2017. So basically these are some of the events that we have planned nationally. But mind you, for the regions, the regional reps, the groups in the various regions, they will be pulling off, their activities, regionally. But this, what I've just unveiled here, is basically, nationally.
Nationally, all right. I'm going to talk about the physical, and this is going to get closer to Annette's other hat, which is infrastructure, still on the PNC. Is there, or I should say, are there any plans that you can possibly reveal at this point? Viewers, there are some surprises too, but we can't let everything out now. But are there any plans to see either additions, subtractions, changes to the physical of PNC's headquarters, which is Congress Place? Are there any major plans to do anything there?
I mean, things are in the making, but I don't think I have the liberty
to put too much out
there. To put too much out there. But that is one thing that we're toiling with. It may not come off for the 60th celebration, but it's in the making.
In the making,
yes,
all right. Before we even come off of the topic of PNC, this is a young lady that who I'm about to ask you about now. We're both familiar with her, and some of her even see her as a mentor and so forth. Is it earlier this month or late last month? I had a conversation on this very program, which is not a strange thing, with the new General Secretary of the People's National.
Yes,
I know I can feel Anna getting nervous there. She wonders where I'm going. But, and she is the first female General Secretary of the People's National Congress Reform. As a young woman, and I know you were one of the persons who would have done a lot of work with Minister Ali.
Oh, yes.
How do you feel that the first time there is a woman at the helm in terms of the being the General Secretary of the PNCR, how do you feel about that, knowing that you're also a young woman and possibly with ambitions to go there eventually? Who knows?
Well,
yes. How do you feel about that? How should that make us as young women of the PNCR feel?
well, I guess great, because, there's always a perception about, men holding certain positions in society. And I guess what I can say is that from the time His Excellency became the president, or even before him becoming the president, he always has an interest in seeing women taking up, certain positions, be it in organizations or in the political grouping that we're all a part of. Mistress Amna Ali, I think, she deserved that position as the first female General Secretary of the People's National Congress Reform. And, it would say to me that, well, look, as a young female politician, the sky is always the limit. The sky is always the limit. And Comrade Ali, Minister Ali, I see her as a role model. I see her as a mother. I see her as a mentor, and she is somebody that I can learn and pattern from. Okay. So basically, I'm happy for her.
All right, great. And probably maybe sometime soon, sooner rather than later, we can see a woman going right to the top, meaning becoming the leader of the People's National Congress Reform. Of course, men, this is not to take anything away from you, but, women, we're getting there. We're there, actually. But, just look out for us. We're your competition now. All right, viewers, if you're now tuning in and you're wondering what's happening, this is Facing the Nation. Today I'm chatting with Minister within the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, the Honorable Annette Fergusson. We were talking about the People's National Congress Reform at the beginning of the program because, then this is just to remind those of you now tuning in, we were talking about the People's National Congress Reform because this is the year in which that party, our party, is celebrating 60 years of existence, in which we're very, very proud of, especially the contributions the party would have made to building and developing Guyana, especially after independence. So those of you who missed that information, because Minister Fergusson also listed a number of activities and events that we can expect as we get closer to the October date when we actually celebrate that day. She listed a number of activities. We will ensure that those are placed in the public domain. Some of them have already been, because those of you who follow the People's National Congress Reforms, I think both Instagram and Facebook pages, you would have seen those various bulletins and schedules and so on there. So that's just to give you some information, especially for those of you who have your families living overseas and who like to keep in contact with us and ensure that they're in the know when it comes to information from us. And again, if you're now joining and you really want to hear what Minister Fergusson said about those activities and so on, as usual, this program will be loaded to YouTube and to Facebook. Those are my Facebook pages and YouTube channel before the end of the day. But now let's talk about public infrastructure, which is everybody's business, whether you're a PNC, whether you're AFC, whether you're PPP, whether you're APNU. The public infrastructure affects all of us. Minister Fergusson, a lot of things are happening in terms of public infrastructure.
I agree.
Before you even give us a general update on what's happening. Before you even do that, there are two main projects that we heard a lot being talked about last year and at least at the beginning of this year. Of course, those are the replacement of the bridge. That's the Demerara Harbor Bridge. That's one. And then there's also the Mandela Avenue. But I want to talk about the Mandela Avenue road that first, because it seems as though we're not going to get an expansion project anymore. But the thing is, the road is in a really bad state and it's deteriorating. And I know a lot of people want to hear about what is happening with Mandela Avenue. If there are plans now to resurface, what is happening? Tell us, Minister.
Thank you very much. Well, let me start with the first one first, which happens to be the bridge.
The bridge, all
yes.
right.
I must update the public that last year, I think during my budget presentation, I did report that the government was able to ink an agreement with a consultant, a private firm, Levincy Co. Company, and the Demerara Harbour Bridge there, to have a pre-feasibility study done. That study, as we currently speak, is currently being done. It started in January of 2017, and the expected time of the final report would be in the month of September 2017. I must inform the public that, I mean, this is not news because information was already out there, right? That we had consultations. Consultations were held with stakeholders, so at least, people get a fair understanding as to the type of bridge we're likely to construct there, and what are some of the other things that goes with it, finances, amongst every other thing. So that's it for the Demerara Harbour Bridge, because we really want to bring relief to the people who traverse that bridge, the current bridge. I mean, it has, it has really lived its useful life, but it is still serving. It is still serving.
I think the issue, which you already know because this has been in the public domain, the issue really is the volume of traffic that the bridge takes off. And because of that amount of those vehicles, the number of vehicles that go over, back and forth every day, I think, people begin to feel that they're losing, because there are times when one side, on that side, the traffic is closed off, and then, it happens on this side. So, this has been in the public domain, so we're happy that relief is expected. I mean, not to put you on the spot too much, but are you seeing a possible date or time when consultations and studies and everything can wrap up, when we can see the beginnings of it? I know we're seeing preparations in terms of, and this doesn't have anything to do with the bridge, but in terms of the construction going on the East Bank, to ensure that those walkovers,
the pedestrian
crossing, the overhead, we're seeing. So when people see that, they're a little more comforted because they're seeing the beginnings of something that will happen. So any idea on a year?
Well, as I said, like any major project, there are certain steps to be taken. So one, it's the pre-feasibility study. So I guess after that pre-feasibility study, then we move into probably a feasibility study, right? So as I reported earlier, the expected time of completion for the first phase, which is the pre-feasibility study, that will be completed and submitted in the month of September 2017.
Okay.
So, I mean, perhaps I can safely say that, I guess in the year 2018 we might see
beginnings.
That's
all we need.
Things will be
that
happening.
Comforts us a bit. When I say us, I'm speaking for everybody out there.
Yes, mind you, even though it would be a major project and finances.
Yes.
So I guess when all the studies would have been completed, the next phase is, where do we find this money? Because if we don't have it locally, obviously we'll have to get partnership, get I guess companies to at least fund that bridge.
Hopefully we can get that, because I think every Guyanese would be happy if the new bridge eventually becomes like because the Demerara Harbour Bridge is not only a bridge that gets you over the river, it's historical for us,
Yes.
It's long-standing, it's it's a floating bridge. So I know people would want the time to be taken to get the new bridge done, because possibility exists there can also be something unique and historical about that would indeed help to keep Guyana on the map, with the other things, for example, Kite Falls and so on, that we're known for around the world. Let's talk about Mandela Avenue now.
Well, you're right, Malika. The government some time ago, I think, an IDB loan, right, for the expansion of the Sheriff Mandela, because it's not only the Mandela, it's from Rupert Craig right away along to DSL corner there. But, like any major foreign fund, once you don't probably utilize the money within the period of time, things so they did not that it went back, but it's just that we had to do some reformulation of the project, because half of the monies now will go towards housing development. So rather than us seeing an probably an expansion of Sheriff Mandela. We will be doing some additional work. So since that decision would have been made, the bank will now have to review our resubmission and then get back to us. So we're currently waiting on the bank for a go-ahead. Yeah.
Okay, and then the public will be able to know exactly what will happen with that road, the Mandela Sheriff Street. Okay, fine. We'll accept that for now, Minister, only for now. Let's talk about the other projects that, especially with the new administration, viewers, and I don't even have to tell you this, you know this, we have been able to, I think it's two, Minister Fergusson can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's two early, very successful budgets we've been able to produce, and I stress on the word early, and I know the 2017 budget, national budget, was read in 2016.
Yes.
In December 2016. Given it was read then, all the ministries were allocated a certain amount. I know you're not the only minister in the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, but based on what you can speak about, in terms of developmental projects and so on, were you able to utilize what you should be utilizing in the first 7 months of the year to get those projects done? And would you like to talk about some of those projects that have thus far contributed to bettering our lives?
Well, so far, Malika, since Budget 2017 was read early, yes, we've been receiving our allocations for the various projects, but I just want to make it clear, even though you have a budget, right, the budget, you have local and specific.
Okay.
So local, that is where the government, Guyana government, would fund certain projects.
Okay.
When we talk about specific, those are foreign funded projects like the IDBs, the CDBs, the UKs, whatever. Those are foreign funded projects that are being categorized as specific, right? So what you find happening is that for the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, we have been moving apace with our various projects, even though there are a few glitches here and there, especially when it comes to the whole procurement method, to get some of the projects advertised, then you have to get back the tenders, then the tenders them now have to be evaluated at the National Tender Board, because certain amount of monies would require the National Tender Board giving its no objection before it moves to Cabinet.
Yes.
But mind you, Tender Board, it's just one body, but you have several other ministries, right? But as I said, for public infrastructure, we have been doing great things. We have been getting our projects moving apace. For developmental projects, we have started the pedestrian overpass there in 4 areas. One is at Houston, to the Peters Hall area there by the bridge. Then we have at Diamond and Eccles, right? So we, Ministry of Public Infrastructure, we are doing things. Besides the overpass, we have roads. We have been doing a lot of work on our main access roads, bridges, doing city fences and other projects. I must report that when I was last here, I did report that the UK SIFT project was going to come on stream.
Okay.
That is the Krupakari Bridge. Right now, people are getting from one end to the other using like a barge.
A
right?
barge, yeah.
So we want to have a fixed bridge there. The development of the waterfront development from Stabroek.
Yeah, you
way
did speak
down,
about that.
Yeah, right. So those.
So what is the waterfront? Sorry, what is happening with that? Has it?
But I'm moving to that.
Okay.
Right. Well, what is happening is that we went out to tenders. So we are waiting on bids to be submitted before we actually award the projects or the contracts. So we are doing things. What else can I report on? Transport and Harbors Department, we have the bicycle stelling was in a deplorable state when we took government. So last year, in this year's budget, we were able to allocate some of 240 million Ghana dollars to enhance that stelling. So currently works are ongoing. Yes, I mean, with these massive projects, you would have some amount of discomforts. Our people would experience some amount of inconvenience and discomforts. But nevertheless, that is what development will do to us. We also have, for the Transport and Harbors Department, we'll be rehabilitating a few of our vessels. The Lady North Court, I think it's now in dock. Sandaka, we have to do some work on Sandaka. The Malali too, we'll be doing some work on those vessels because, those are aged vessels, but at least they're doing wonders.
I think the last time you were here, we talked about whether those could be replaced or not. That aside, how long could we, and this, the viewers sometimes know my personality and my sense of humor. I'm not being sarcastic here. This is a quite a fair question, I think so. How long can we keep doing repairs to those? I mean, it's good. Again, I was talking about our history and the things that we're known for around the world, and these are some of the things. But how long can we keep repairing or pumping funds into propping, for want of a better word? For example, these old vessels. How long do you, I know you're not an engineer, but how long do you average that we can keep these vessels alive? It's quite interesting.
Well, you see, Malika, I mean, for me to answer that, I mean, some of these vessels, they have been in existence for 70 plus years.
Yes, exactly.
So maintenance is indeed a very high it's very costly, but to get a new vessel,
it's much more.
It's millions, right? But I know that the government of India, they have given a commitment, a grant for us to have a new vessel to service the region 1 area. But you don't go and purchase these vessels just like that. You have to get the design. There are certain things that you must do first. Your design, your specifications, and they will build to suit, right?
So to suit our environment, our waters.
So we're actually waiting on a feedback. All the documents, the designs, amongst every other thing, they were submitted to the government of India. So we're yet to get a feedback from them, right? The Kimbia is currently in dock, and we spent in excess of close to $200 million on the engines. So we expect to see Kimbia, that particular vessel normally service the Region 1 area, the Barima Waini areas, right? So the vessel should be back in operation before September of 2017. So that's for that. Barima was in dock, so Barima recently came out from dock, so that is helping in the Region 1 area, that service with Lady North Court. So a lot of things are happening in public infrastructure, but if I can just go back a bit, with regards to the pedestrian overpass, I must report that these works are expected to be completed in the month of November 2017, right?
That's an early Christmas present for East Bank.
Exactly, and not only East Bank, but those who traverse East Bank on a daily basis. Malika, I want to just share with the public the Kanawaima ferry service. That is the ferry service there at Molson Creek that serves between Guyana and Suriname.
Yes.
What we would have done is that we invested some monies to, spruce up the passenger area, the canteen, the walkways and so forth, so that when our people are traveling, they're traveling with ease and comfort. So works are currently ongoing, and that should be completed before the end of the year. But we have the massive project right now. They're at the Chetty Jagan International Airport, and works are progressing. Works are progressing, moving apace. So, Malika, all in all, these are just some of the things public infrastructure is involved in. Minus the civil aspect of things, I must let you know that the whole concept of going green, a green economy, we would have started because we have like GA, the Ghana Energy Agency. That particular unit has been doing a lot. We would have started the solar panel. We installed some solar panels there at State House. We expect to have some installed at a few schools. As we currently speak, I think we have a solar panel boshed just in the agricultural area there, right? The Ministry of the Presidency. So all in all, at least the government, we're not only preaching, but at least we're walking and we're doing, right? Because, if this is where we want to see Ghana in another 10 years, we have to start somewhere. So public infrastructure, we have been carrying the lead. In region number 1, the Mabaruma area, we will be establishing a farm, a solar farm. So the tenders went out. I think the evaluations are in. So they're currently conducting evaluation in that regard. So sooner or later, we should be seeing some amount of movements there in the region 1 area. Because as it stands currently, that region is currently being fed energy through generation sets. And you're talking about, fossil fuel and all these manatee. And if you want to go green, as I said before, this is the way to go alternative energy. So that solar farm will be established before the 2017 is concluded. So basically, these are some of the things that public infrastructure is involved in.
All right. That's a fair update for us, and again, we'll accept that.
But a lot of road works have been going on. Besides road works, we have drainage, rain. We would have had heavy rainfall over the past few weeks, and we didn't see many flood areas, because we ensure that the major canals are cleared. We even get the communities. Right now, we're doing some work in the Alboisong area, getting the community involved, community participation.
And people have been willing?
Exactly. People want work. We did drainage cleaning there in the North Rumveld area and South Rumveld area. So public infrastructure is doing things. Besides these projects, what we did for 2017 is that we introduced a new program called the CORE, the Community Organized Restore the Environment. And this body is basically seeking to create jobs for like 200 young people. So far, we have launched about 13 groups so far. So young people are getting, they're becoming involved in community development, community enhancement, and so forth. So they're working along with the regions. The ministry would have provided the necessary tools and the equipment, right? And they're paid a monthly salary of $60,000.
Okay.
Right?
All right. It's a start, and it's a good start too. Yes. So I doubt you've missed anything else.
I don't think so.
Well, I'm not going to talk to you about possible projects in 2018.
No, not as yet.
She said no, not as yet. Minister, thank you very much for coming and sharing with us as usual. And of course, congratulations to the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, and we look forward to seeing much more, and of course the continued strengthening, especially the projects that are already out there, the developmental projects. So we expect to see much more as we continue to go ahead. Also on, even though I'm also a part of that, but congratulations celebrations on the People's National Congress turning 60.
Yes.
And we know we'll hear much more from the minister, again, as I did say earlier, as we move closer to the actual anniversary date, which is in October, 60th anniversary this year. PNC turns 60, and don't forget, we never forget the R, which is the reform component. Minister Fergusson, once again, thank you very much for being on Facing the Nation today.
Well, thank you very much, Malika, for having me, and it's always a pleasure.
All right, great. Viewers, of course, this is Facing the Nation. We'll wrap up our program a little earlier than usual today, but I'll take a quick break and then come back with you. Stay tuned. Thanks for staying tuned, viewers. What I didn't remind you is that Mr. Fergusson is, I don't know where my head is today, but she is also the PNC member in charge of the Ramsey Transformation Group. And of course, that group has been doing a lot for the East Ramsey community and the surrounding areas, the close by areas. Recently, there was, I think it's a five-a-side, it's called, a five-a-side football match where those young men who play the game, they were able to benefit and mix and mingle and so on, and the community in general. But I promise when Minister Fergusson returns, we will certainly have some more information in terms of what she is doing in her community to uplift, to build, strengthen, and uplift that community, especially where the young people are concerned. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have with you this week on Facing the Nation. I know we have some outstanding guests. A particular guest, she's not going to be here next week. I think she's going to be here the week after next, but I'm so excited and so proud of her that I'm going to begin to announce it from now. Former Member of Parliament Vanessa Kissoon, former GYSM member Vanessa Kissoon, she's been doing some really, really good things, and we had a chat, and she's going to be here very soon on Facing the Nation to tell you all about what she's been doing since she temporarily moved off the political scene. She's been doing so much to help our young people. So we're going to be having her coming up. That's one of the things that you can look forward to in the new month, in the month of August. Again, I remind you, I hope you're not tired of hearing me say this, but Minister Patterson is still expected to be on Facing the Nation. That's the female Patterson, Minister Valerie Patterson, to talk about the housing development projects and programs. I did promise you last week, I reminded you last week that she is also waiting on some information so that she can have all of her information together. So when she comes here, she'll be able to give you accurate information and answer all those questions that you've been sending me via email and via Facebook and so on. So those are just some of the things that you can look forward to coming up in August. But for now, this has been Facing the Nation for today and Facing the Nation for the month of July in the year 2017. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you so very much for joining us. Again, those of you who are now tuning in and you've missed the program, it will be uploaded to YouTube and to Facebook, if not before the end of today, early tomorrow. So this has been Facing the Nation. Thank you very much for joining. Join me again next week. Goodbye.